Hi everyone. Today we're having Mahsa. I say Khanbabai, but Khanbabai. What did you say it?
Yeah, Americans will pronounce it as Khanbabi.
Khanbabi. Okay, I'll stick with that. Just like my last name is John Khosravi. It's really Khosravi, but thank you so much for coming on. Everyone's already seen Mahsa on TV, and she's always on the front line of every time they do something crazy with CBP or the travel ban and stuff. She's on the forefront, like on the front lines. Fighting it, and so it's good to have someone like that and taking him to court and all that kind of stuff. You're losing a lot of sleep and a lot of family time doing this kind of stuff, but it's much appreciated. Thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Yeah, we're all, I think, becoming media warriors in addition to wearing our hats as immigration warriors. So
yeah, it's a crazy time. So I wanted to have this 10 question session so people get to know you better and who you are, because they see your name, they see you on TV. I think I saw you on Rachel Maddow's show, all these different kind of shows that you're on. So that's a whole thing too. I just want to ask you about that. How is it going on these shows? Because is it like you just talk to a camera and it's kind of disorienting?
So yeah, it is interesting in that you're not there in person with anyone. You're in a dark room and there's a camera in front of you, and you can choose if you want to actually see yourself and the host of the show. But there is a time lag, and so some people find that really confusing because what's coming out of the person's mouth doesn't really match with what's happening in your ear with a little microphone. So it's fascinating though to see how they all work and the complexity behind it, but they're really always wonderful. And they just surprise you with the questions. So there's nothing prepared ahead of time.
So let's just jump into it. So we know your name. I like to start with little people's like backgrounds, where they're from. Where did you grow up?
So I grew up in Western Massachusetts, a little bit more of a rural part of the state, probably about an hour and a half from Boston. My parents came to the Worcester area first because my dad came for his residency training on his J1, and I was just a baby back then. And that's when America and Iran still had wonderful relationship, and immigration laws were pretty reasonable, and doctors were readily welcomed. And then I pretty much grew up in Massachusetts my whole life for law school in New York.
Do you know if he had a 2-year J1 requirement or not, or that stuff?
Yes, we had the J1, J2 home residence requirement. Maybe that's part of my passion of why I love dealing with international medical grads and J1s.
Wonderful. By the way, have you done J1 2 years like recently for hardship waiver?
Yeah, I actually am working on a couple right now, and I had a few that were just approved recently. So they're still going through. There's a little bit of a time lag. Things are obviously under COVID-19 right now, a little bit slower, but they're still being processed.
Interesting. I do the agency, the embassy waiver kind of basic one. I had a doctor come in, and they can't do the agency, like the embassy one. So
correct.
I don't usually do hardship waiver, so I'm like, I can't help you, but it's good to know. I'll forward your information to them. It'll be good.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah.
Perfect. And so what got you into immigration law? Was it just that background, or just found your way into it?
Yeah, I mean, I think partly going through the process myself, through high school and in college. Back then, you had to go to the police station for fingerprints, and we had to do that multiple times because obviously our file did get lost here and there in the shuffle. And so I think that probably had something to do with what I love doing now. Mm-hmm. And we grew up in a really interesting community of international physicians at this small community hospital. There were doctors from the Philippines, Argentina, India, and so I kind of just grew up in that really multicultural community and wanted to keep being able to work with people from all around the world. So it was a natural fit.
Perfect. And so what kind of firm did you start your own firm, or what kind of firm do you have right now, and how did you get to that structure?
Yeah, so just 20 years ago, I actually started my practice myself. I went out on my own as a solo practitioner, and I'm still a solo practitioner to this day. I do have some more staff back then when it was just myself. So I have 3 full-time staff who are really wonderful and supportive and are equally passionate about helping people.
And what kind of areas of law do you focus on within immigration?
So I do primarily employment-based immigration with a particular focus in the healthcare field with international medical grads and dentists and physical therapists. But I also do family-based immigration, mm-hmm. and then obviously some consular processing, either in terms of just regular visa processing, but also lately I've been doing mandamus, writs of mandamus for consular delayed cases.
Yeah, that's a big topic. And you know, I forgot to mention, I should have said this from the beginning. One of the main reasons we're talking is because we have a panel coming for AILA coming up on, where's the date? Do you have it up or?
I think it's in July. I don't have the exact date.
Oh, I have it right here. Thursday, July 30th at 2 p.m. Eastern. It's a panel called How to File a Successful Travel Ban Waiver. So we're going to talk about that. And part of that waiver is nowadays filing lawsuits. That's the last resort, or sometimes the first resort. It seems like it's going to go that direction. Is that what's caused you to start filing these? But did you file lawsuits before, or was it the pickup in the travel ban waiver issue?
Yeah, it was definitely related to the travel ban waiver, I think, but also a real big uptick that we've seen in delays for international students, particularly Iranian students and Middle Eastern students with their F1 visas and their J1s when they're not subject to the travel ban. Mm-hmm. So that's really what got me hooked, where you had these wonderful, talented students who got into great universities and their visa applications were sitting at the embassy for 6 months, a year and a half. And so I started to file mandamuses for those types of cases.
How did you learn it? How did you get into it?
Luckily, in my role as the chapter chair of the AILA New England chapter, I saw a need not only from my own side, but also from our members. And so we put on a mandamus workshop where we had 2 attorneys come in, and it was a real hands-on workshop and where we got to actually prepare and draft and understand the nuances of filing them. So I'm still learning. It's definitely a learning curve.
And was it you, or did you help when that one Iranian student in Massachusetts was turned around once they arrived, and you got a federal court decision, but they're gone by that time? What was your participation in that? What happened there?
Yeah, so that was another interesting thing that we've seen happen recently, in that students who finally got their visa after months and months of going through their vetting process, they landed at particularly Logan Airport in Boston and were subject to extensive questioning by CBP and ultimately subject to what's called expedited removal, a really terrible, severe, harsh punishment on individuals whereby they're subject to a 5-year bar from ever coming back to the United States. Obviously, their visa is revoked, they're put on a plane, sent back out. The individual whose case was filed in federal court wasn't a client of mine, but actually clients of good colleagues of mine. And I actually am still representing 3 individuals who are subjected to expedited removal. One who we were able to get a motion to rescind the fraud charges, because that's another thing they threw in there, except we couldn't get the motion to rescind revoked yet. And it's still an ongoing issue, obviously, with the multiple travel bans going on right now related to COVID-19. We haven't really seen any issues come up lately, but it's something we're going to continue to watch.
It's so interesting that you got to like jump and create a whole new onto a new practice area like that, and then and learn it and all that kind of stuff. What do you like the most about your practice and practice of immigration law?
I mean, obviously, helping people is really a great part of it. You feel that you're accomplishing something for individuals that either are looking to join their family members, or they have a great job that they're trying to get a visa to work under. But I also just love working with people from around the world of all different types of backgrounds. So it's a nice way to get that mix in.
Yeah, immigration is like, you got to like people when you're doing immigration. There's always an individual at the end of the day that you're one-on-one dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, especially right now, I think particularly frustrating for a lot of clients. They're feeling really desperate, they're feeling really vulnerable. And besides advocating for them as an attorney, you're now trying to help them through with making decisions. Do they try to go back to their home country? If they're taking care of a US citizen relative, are they going to be able to leave their relative here without family members to care for them? Are they going to end up overstaying their visa if they don't leave? It's really quite troublesome and problematic to see all of the complications and lack of CIS's guidance and willingness to be able to help these people, unlike other countries like the UK. They gave automatic extensions to anybody for, I think, 6 months. And I mean, the US hasn't done anything even.
I mean, they've increased the filing fee for I-539 extension. There's a biometrics fee now involved and extra form involved, and people are not going to know that. Right. It's so funny. I'm doing an extension of an L2, and for the filing fee on the website, it says, I-539 has this much plus biometrics for each person. But if you read the instructions, it says you only pay a biometrics fee if you're doing a visa. They haven't updated the instructions for it, at least the way I read when I read it. And so it's like, how are people going to do this? They're going to get the wrong fees and the bounce back. Their status is going to expire, and then they're out of status, and it's too late. It just they're set up for problems. You're set up for disaster when you're trying to do stuff on your own.
And I think, frankly, that's the point, right? The
Yeah.
government is looking to do that, sadly.
So crazy. And now, I mean, it's when we talk. Our next question was, what do you dislike the most? I'm sure that's a big part of it. But what's kind of stuff, both law, just as a practitioner, that you don't like or dislike the most with practicing immigration law?
I mean, I have to say that my practice has evolved over the last few years, and that I'm much more involved in the policy side of things in terms of advocacy on a public level and a community level, on media level. So I've really appreciated that turn in my practice. But I think, yeah, it is having limited options for my clients is probably the biggest frustration.
Now, on the policy realm, you were very active in immigration, so you in AILA as well. So you're the chapter chair of New England.
Yes.
New England is a pretty big size chapter, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're probably medium to big compared to the other chapters. We have about 800 members across 5 states. We know that we have a small New England states pretty close to one another, and it's a really nice group.
And you're also active on the national side. What do you do on the national level?
So I currently serve on the State Department Liaison Committee. That's one of the national committees where we have the ability to meet with State Department officials pretty much on a quarterly basis and bring concerns from the membership to them in a Q&A type of format. Mm-hmm. And within that committee, I also serve as the liaison to the Waiver Review Division.
Oh, interesting.
Within the State Department. So all of those J1 waiver issues, advisory opinions or hardship waivers, they all go through the Waiver Review Division, and I'm the liaison to that.
But that's not related to the travel ban waivers. That's the old school J1 waivers section. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
And how does it, like, for these Q&As? And one thing is, if you're listening to this, 100% get the DOS liaison reports, read them, reread them. There's just so much information in those. There's usually, like, I'm surprised DOS is that helpful. Like, that's surprising.
It's incredible. They're very open and communicative with us in the meetings. And so those Q&As are really something that people should, like you said, go back and reread and look at them over time as well, because something may not have been applicable to your practice, maybe, let's say, a year ago, but if you look back at those notes from a year ago, you'll find something that's going to be a real gem.
Yeah, I would say always save them in the PDF in your, like, some folder, and then go back and do keyword searches to see what's there, because you could use those. I mean, it's not official policy, but it's official enough where you say, well, this is what you said, you always use that.
That's a fantastic practice, Debbie. You should highlight that and bold it, right? Yeah. Is that people need to save this and then go back and search them later. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's something like you got to read and think about and talk with your, like, coworkers and colleagues that, oh, this said this. That's why on the show I always try to read that and talk about it as much as possible. It's really helpful. But how do you meet? Is it like an online thing, or just even writing, they give you writing back, or do you actually meet people and ask them?
Yeah, I mean, so up until March, when we had our last meeting, we met with them in person quarterly, and it would be either in DC or at the National Visa Center, for example, and we even went to the KCC. So we've been meeting with them in person. I'm not sure how things are going to be moving forward.
So you got to travel for that position then?
Yes. Yes.
How is the KCC? It seems like it's like I always thought it was like some locker or just store stuff, but is it like a big, what kind of facility is both that and the NVC? How do they look?
Yeah, so I mean, the NBC is an amazing facility. There are 2 large buildings, and they have all kinds of offices and storage of all of these files, which now, as we all know, they're slowly transferring to digital, to being online. The KCC, I wasn't able to make that trip, but I understand that it's probably somewhat similar, though it serves a different role. The KCC is kind of like a go-between in terms of providing documents to the consular posts for non-immigrant cases, and the NVC really deals with the immigrant visa-based cases.
What kind of other stuff have you done for AILA? You've been active. I mean, you don't look like you've been practicing for 20 years. Someone practiced 20 years in this game looks much more tired, I would imagine. But what kind of activities have you been doing with AILA?
Well, currently I'm actually running for the Board of Governors on the national level. So for you AILA members out there, you know that you have your local chapter leadership, where you have your chair and vice chair and all of that. And then we have a similar structure on the national level where each chapter chair serves as a BOG member, a Board of Governors member, we call it BOG. And then there are elected members as well. Anybody in the country can try to run for the position. I really highly encourage everyone to look into it and to get involved on the national level. There are so many benefits to it. So currently I'm running for one of the elected positions. I was nominated by the nominating committee after submitting my request. There's an interview process. You have to submit some documents explaining why you're looking to run, what you'd like to bring to the board. And so I hope I could have your support and your votes out there. Please feel free to look up my campaign materials online.
What is like one main thing you want to add to like one policy, or one idea you want to bring?
Well, I have a few, but I think really the main two things that I really want to focus on is getting real information out to our members. I think there's so much information out there, and AILA really is a gem, but it hasn't really been able to connect with individual chapter members if they're really not fully involved and they don't understand what resources are out there. Yeah. So one is to really empower our chapters to provide that information to members. And then second is to really engage more members, a more diverse group of members from all different backgrounds.
Very interesting. Well, good luck. That's going to be interesting. I think voting is open right now. It's going to be open for a while, but something to get on. Now, going back to your practice, like what was some advice you wish you had when you first started immigration law?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely is one of the ones I just mentioned is getting more involved in AILA. I mean, my practice was about an hour and a half from where our New England chapter meetings are being held in Boston back then. And it was really difficult to make the effort to drive an hour and a half to get into the meetings and then an hour and a half back home. But once I started doing it, I really understood the value of getting involved and talking to colleagues and other members. I was always a solo practitioner, never worked in a firm or anything like that. And so I really wish I had done it a little bit sooner and volunteer for positions. I mean, not volunteer to be on a committee or a liaison position. Just speak up, don't be shy.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think I was in my third year of practice when I joined AILA. I was like, dude, I just missed so much. I missed so much time where I could have, got to know more information, met colleagues, had so many ins, and just learned so much stuff to improve myself. And so I was like, you really have to be really active and go to the meetings. There's just so much you get out of it. And just, if it's $50 for dinner, it's nothing compared to the amount of value you're going to get back. Yes. It's really pennies on the dollar.
Yeah, I mean, immigration law is a really unique area of law where there's a lot that you can learn by reading those Q&As and policy memos and reading the regs, but sometimes you have to synthesize it all by hearing from your colleagues about what their cases are, what they're seeing, what are the trends.
You can read it, but you're never really sure because you need someone who's done it before just to corroborate it and just bounce ideas off. It's such a complicated practice area.
Yes.
And with regards to your practice, what is your favorite method of marketing and getting business?
Oh boy. I mean, definitely I like to try to put newsletters out there. I think clients find that really helpful and then pass that on to their friends. I've gotten more involved in Twitter and on Facebook. We've created a Facebook page for our practice. So I think those are probably my go-tos.
Oh, neat. Okay. And what are your outside hobbies? Outside of immigration law, what do you like to do? I think you have family, you have kids?
Yeah, so I have 4 kids actually.
4.
My 2 younger ones are at home. My 2 older ones are kind of in and out. One of them is autistic, and so it's been a challenging time with COVID-19 and making sure that they're engaged. So that's one population that's been pretty badly hit through COVID-19 and schools closing and things like that. But definitely I love yoga and gardening. It's my stress relief.
How is gardening in Massachusetts? Like how
limited.
big is the season? I'm sorry.
It's limited. But yeah, my garden is moving strong right now. Got some cucumbers and peppers and parsley and things like that, and lots of flowers.
Wonderful. We actually just planted some seeds and they're not coming out. So I'm like, let's just buy the ones that are already made and just want to like go to Home Depot where it's already grown out instead of starting seeds because it's just not coming out.
That's what I do too.
Yeah. Mahsa, thank you so much for coming. Is there anything else you want to say before we leave? Oh, what's the best way for people to contact you if they want to meet with you or call you or something like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, so definitely feel free to always send an email. That's probably one of the best ways to reach out to us. My information is all on my website, which is mk-immigration.com. You could just do a Google search and I'm sure it'll come up. And you could also look up Khanbabai immigration law on my Facebook. And calling our office, or yeah, probably email is best.
Wonderful. Mahsa, thank you so much for coming on. I hope to have you on board talking about more stuff, especially about the DOS liaison stuff. Probably do like a clip or something short where if you get some news coming out, we'll do a blurb and we'll put it out there just so everyone knows and get some updates. Because yeah, the DOS stuff, what I found was really interesting is, you know, I do a lot of consular processing. It's like half the stuff I do. And I just thought it was natural for everyone to do consular processing because you found I-130 and they eventually do it. What I found is a lot of practitioners don't deal with consular processing that much. So it's kind of a confusing thing, and they don't understand the intricacies and of NBC and the embassies and how they want documents that are not expected, or it was not expected, now they want it. So that kind of stuff. It's very important to get that DOS information out there. It's a very interesting practice area that has a lot of headaches that you have to be, you know, hurdles that you have to prepare yourself for.
Right. Yeah, and I think the number of different things happen as well as you need to look at consular post specific, right, practices, getting to know them. But then also people don't understand how important it is to prep your client before they go to an interview. Yeah. I mean, I think that's probably one of the most important aspects is letting them know what to expect, how they should talk, how they should answer questions. You know, the whole attitude is really, I think, lost sometimes. And when they get in there, they don't understand that the consular officer has, what, 2, 3, 4 minutes? I mean, I've been to probably 20 posts over the last few years.
I mean, 2, 3 minutes is a lot for NIV. That's maybe 30 seconds sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, actually, it would be a great resource. I'd be happy to do a talk about that sometime.
Awesome, Master. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I look forward to hopefully seeing you in person at one of these conferences. I think we saw each other the last one maybe or something like that, but hope to see you again.
Yeah, no, same here. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. And looking forward to the July panel. That'll be nice. We'll actually have to start planning for that soon.
Oh, for sure. Bye, Master. Have a great weekend.
All right. Have a great weekend. Thank you.